Welcome back to Dreamin' Dragons. You've bought yourself one variety, then another, and because you can, you've got yourself a third, a fourth, and maybe even a fifth. With an armful of different dragons, it'd be silly not to have half a dozen different varieties. What a haul! But now that you have this snazzy selection, is there any issues with planting different varieties together? Pretty common question I've seen floating around the socials. So let's walk through my experiences with this and some handy tips to keep the chances of confusion to a minimum. So stick around to the end. So, how do I run my ship? With a modest sized growing area, I've always mixed my varieties in a trellis to maximize the varieties I can squeeze into the yard, whilst keeping the number of pots and trellises to a minimum. I typically run with 3 varieties per pot. Had some with 4 earlier on, but with 3 I managed to sculpt better canopies and keep the dragons a little neater. When it came to mixing and matching, I definitely noticed that some were more vigorous growers than others, and some definitely had stronger and thicker root development. But from my experience, there was never an instance where I felt that one was being bullied or malnourished by another. Even when adding a newly rooted cutting to an established trellis, no obvious impact. There is one issue that I have found when mixing and matching my dragons though, and it has nothing to do with the growth rate nor health. Let's paint a picture here. You've got a few pretty similar varieties in a pot. Up and over the trellis they've gone. Branches are all looking fairly similar. Bit of crisscross action amongst them. Now let's turn off the lights and throw in some flowers that need pollinating. Which one's which? Can this one be pollinated with this pollen? Is that the self-fertile one? Sure, a head torch and some tracing up from the ground can solve this, but do you really want to spend your whole evening tracing branches? Or do you want to admire the beauty of the flowers and get your pollination sorted? 2 things I've done in the past when I've anticipated an evening pollination headache. Before the sun sets, pre-trace your branches and whack your variety in small writing at the base of your flower, or somewhere on its branch that you can find easily. Or if you're wanting something that'll help more long term, I've tied different coloured ribbons onto a branch for each variety. Saves tracing when wave 2, wave 3, season 2, etc. come by. Jackpot! And 2 other simple things while you're going strong. Don't forget the simple task of clicking that like button as well as subscribing for all your dragon fruity goodness. Oh yes!